with this girls hockey Calgary picking the U15 teams, just sorting everybody out. So there's 160 kids trying out. So they started off, and I've watched, I think I've watched 11 games already in the last 4 days or something. Starts off with 8 teams of 20, and they played 2 games, and that filters. Now it's 6 teams, and it'll go to 4 teams on the weekend, and then there'll be a draft. But I saw the difference in. I have one girl out there. Well, a lot of players I coached last year are trying out. So there's one girl that I kind of worried about. I wondered how she'd do in this because she'd only played hockey for 2 years. She ended up being. I saw her make 10 consecutive good passes, which is more than most making the whole trial, right? And of course, she'd been through our process and our practices and playing games and all this kind of stuff. And then a player that I've done private things with. So of course you work on the concepts, but there's no pressure, right? And there's no game pressure and all this kind of stuff. Just being in that context, just struggled, just unbelievably struggled in the same, so far. And I just, that I'm just thinking if you don't do it in practices against pressure and all this kind of stuff, it's really hard when someone's chasing you, to not go back to the old thing and say, okay, winger, it's your job. I'm just going to rim this puck and get rid of it. And, I was really sad for this one girl because it's just something she doesn't do naturally. And that's why I really think that you just have to do things under pressure just to do it in a drill kind of thing. It's not realistic enough, right? So, yeah, just wanted to throw that in because we're going through that right now, and we have to name, and they're going to chop another 40, and they all play at the level they belong to, but and they'll end up with three AA teams at the end of the whole process. But all these other kids will go to, hopefully they'll get the levels that they belong in.
Tom, your team, because of your approach, I watched them make in one shift 7 consecutive passes in a row. And the girl you're talking about probably benefited from that coming to the camp. I'm watching the U13 tryouts. There aren't 2 passes in a row. So that's hockey sense. There's a lot of deliberate practice, but coaches don't understand how do you apply that to thinking and making decisions in games. And I think the approach of using games and the balance that you have mastered the art of right stuff, right amount, right time with what you do. Um, Trying to convince coaches, let it go, let them play small area games, they'll figure it out. That's a work in progress.
But the most effective thing we do is a full ice game.
Yeah.
Where they have to make at least one pass in each zone, or they 2 seconds or 3 seconds with a puck. So it's not all small area games, it's just games.
I brought that up, Tom, that your game and must pass in each zone. I sat with 2 coaches evaluating players, and they've got their minds made up of the best individual skilled players who look strong and are fast and get first to pucks, but there's no team play whatsoever. So I brought up your drill and I talked about your passing stats that they know they're going to have to keep this year because that's sort of going to be a mandated part of their coach education. They may not understand or appreciate it, but we're trying to get them to play with it, to learn from it. So thanks, Tom, for everything that you're doing. Dean, you've got your hand up again, and John's hand is still up. I think when you're done, Dean.
I just want to say one thing, Wally. It's Johanny always said, you have rules that cause things to happen. So like if you have a rule that there has to be at least one pass in each zone. I can't pass if you don't get open. So it causes, first of all, you break because you think, yeah, I actually do have a chance to get a pass. And, and you get open and the player has to look around. So it causes the player to look around. It causes some automatic support. I'll let you go with the other guys now.
Dean.
Excellent, Tom. Like that having that purpose and a rationale and intention and it's in the academic literature it's called a constraint. You're placing a constraint. You've got to make one pass to advance through the zone or whatever it is. So that's where the intentionality and the coach's understanding of what purpose they want to get out of it, how they apply it. I think it's great. I think the comment about, I think a lot of kids do want to win, and a lot of kids, especially the higher levels they do, but even kids in rec enjoy winning more than losing. I don't think they dwell on the outcome as long afterwards as maybe some of the other more elite kids do. It might be an individual thing, but I think it's also a byproduct of the level and the expectation put on the kids. There's been a lot of work though done around fun. And I think the name of one of the researchers is Heather Mannix. And I think she's done a couple of presentations for Hockey USA that's available on their site for the videos. I know she was on a presentation that I did at a symposium in Finland 2 years ago. It was on COVID, so we had to do it on Zoom. Anyway, her and another person have a lot of really good data on why do kids play sport. And the number one reason across sport, across gender, across ages, and across skills is fun. Hands down, number one is fun. So if the kids are not having fun, and I think it speaks to Wally, what you said about your practices in Bantam, and then after speaking with Ken, you went back to more of a scrimmage or a game-based thing, and you had some great results there. And it would be interesting to ask those kids, how much fun were they having before and after that change was made? Now, deliberate practice would suggest that you don't always have fun. You can't always have fun. There are times where you have to put in some hard work on the shovel, right? But by and large, motivation for kids to play is fun, and outcome and winning was often not mentioned, or it was at the bottom. So I think we need to keep that an open mind to what's the motivation of the kids. And I think it can certainly change in various degrees. And the last thing that I came up with, there's a researcher out of Leeds Beckett University in England, and her name is Dr. Laura, I can't even pronounce it, Bercial. So I don't want to butcher her name, but she she studies serial winning coaches. And there's another fellow in, I think he was at York who did it too, but this lady talked about common themes in serial winning coaches. And the four things that she came out with was overall, it's an idea. Your rationale for coaching is a form of what she terms driven benevolence. And her themes that she's teased out when interviewing these coaches are philosophy of the coach. And I think we've all come across here today with our various perspectives and our values, our vision, having the right people in the right place, and what kind of environment and culture are set as part of that process. So a lot of, I would call kind of big airy-fairy terms, but I think we all realize the importance of these things in our respective coaching. And I think, Wally, you're really trying to help out a lot of that driven benevolence with your, your mission statement exercise. And so I just want to say thanks to really pushing that. And I think it's going to have and continue to have a great impact as you move forward. And I'll shut it off there. I'll stick around, but John, I want to hear your take here as well. But again, guys, it's been great. I appreciate being part of this today. So thank you.
Dean, just want to, before you go, when boys have to have fun to win, boys have to win to have fun, girls have to have fun to win. Now, to me, both can have fun if they define winning as being the best you can be. It's not the score clock. And what I'm worried about at community level, and I'm seeing an example at the U13 level, is if they're not exhibiting effort and good compete, they're not working hard at any level, like not putting in and listening during a practice at community, then they're not going to be the best they can be. So I think in community, I just equate it to education. You listen, you do your homework, you respect the teacher, you respect your classmates. So I think just making sure you appreciate winning is not the score clock, but it's important that you always try to be your best. So I'll leave it at that and go to John.
Thank you, Wally. Yeah, well, wow, a lot of information here. I mean, it's quite amazing. So yeah, I just want to add one thing here. Coming from the soccer world, and being fortunate to have plunged in the hockey world when I came here and be part of it. I think we need to understand that there's so much out there that we need or we can learn from it, not only from hockey but other sports. And I think if we go back in time, the first ones, the Russians, Soviets were the first one to, and I would say the Swedish and the Finnish and all these sort of countries had the opportunity to deal with that, because a lot of I read the first books from Tarasov, and when I started learning hockey, I got my hands on every book I could about hockey, skating, Howie Meeker. I remember Jacques Lemaire, all these guys, how to skate and so on. And one of the things that really impacted me is that, Tarasov, Arkady Shershenev, one of the coaches that basically coached with Tarasov and went on to become the coach for the Soviet team, they were pro soccer players. They were very knowledgeable about, they were soccer and they play bandy and they play hockey, and I will honestly say I think they play basketball and all other sports. And one of the maxims of Tarasov was we need to learn from other sports. We need to learn from other domains, as he used to say. So I think here, with all the wealth of knowledge, with all the people that attend to your conferences, I would call this, so much that we can learn and we can keep doing together here to refine what we do. So much. Everything is, I will say, at the end of the day, everything is in front of us. The knowledge is there. And we need to take it. We need to sort of refine it, organize that somewhere, so we can teach also ourselves to how to get this and refine what we do. We are at the prime of our teaching. I think now when we're getting older, I think we're getting wiser, but I think this is where I think we need to share, mentor people if we can, and so we can close that gap between that distance between how we do things and how we transform things. And I think that's the critical thing here. So thank you very much, Wally, to allow me to be here. I think this is a privilege, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you.
John, when you said Darisoff, learning from other sports, and it's related to Dean's research and Tom's idea of games.
Yes.
More important than the speed of foot and the speed of hand is the speed
speed
of
of mind.
Yeah. And that's right now. We haven't allowed the mind to be a part of their growth and development, just like in education. We teach great memorizers. We don't teach them how to think in education. And we certainly have work to do in playing a sport and allowing them to think, because these young people are so bright, generation, whatever Z it is, so ahead in what they see, know, understand, interpret, that we may not be ready to coach them unless we listen to them and let them think and let us know what they think and understand. So questioning is really critical for the coach today. And Daryl Belfry's first book, The Student is the Teacher, is something to really remember, but we must let them think more. So I really want to thank you for coming on. Does anybody else have anything to add to the conversation? I've got a meeting with Tom Rennie, doing the mission statement exercise with his daughter's company, who deal with mental health with sporting associations at all levels. And I think the mental health of sport is fundamental to the good being of society. And this exercise of getting perspective in place in terms of whatever you do in business or sport is critical. And we each compete to make each other better. And I think right now, as a group of coaches here who are going to compete against each other, Tom, I'll see you tonight at the games. You're there to make each other better. And you're going to, when you pick your team, and you're going to try to win. And it isn't a score clock. That's sort of the final result of whether you did the right things or not to develop the kids to be the best they can be. So any other questions, comments? Now, Rick, I always like to resort back to you. You seem to succinctly bring things up. So anything else on your mind at all, Rick?
No, not today, Wally. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I had an opportunity to share my thoughts on it. So I'm full for today.
Tom, is your hand up?
I just got one thing that is we learn in patterns, right? So if things are just segmented a little, one thing at a time, things have to have context. So that's why if you can write sentences where you put the first and the last letter and mix all the letters in between, and people can read the sentence, because we know we learn in patterns, and that's what we kind of have to have when we teach anything, or is that it's patterns. That's how the human beings work. So we have to give context to things, and not just little tidbits here and there. So
Tom, I'm just going to ask you a question. Does that relate to the whole method of coaching or teaching?
well, I guess it does. It just what I found with Hockey Alberta and all that's the whole part whole method was you teach the whole drill, part of the drill, and the whole drill, but they never taught the game. It was all about drills. So I think with anything we learn, we have to have associations and patterns where this fits into the context, eh? And that's why I told a story about the girl that I've given individual things to, but
Yeah.
then in the context of the game, she didn't do them.
Yeah.
But the other girl had the context of the game.
Yeah.
And, was just comfortable out there making play. So I think we have to keep that in mind when we're teaching.
No, thank you. That's a clarification for me. I didn't look at whole part whole in terms of drills at Hockey Alberta. I looked at it teaching skills. Okay, breakaway skate, and they handle a puck. Then I go to the part method of going with no puck, one hand on the stick, until we push the imaginary puck ahead, and then a puck ahead at controlling speed. So the progression is in the part. The final result of the skating tactic is full speed, competitive racing with a puck. So that's my interpretation of whole part whole. It doesn't apply to drills. Drill, in my thinking, is are you accomplishing a purpose? Do they have the skills to do the drill? If they can't pass, do we have to use a whole part whole method and regress and teach them how to pass? And like you did years ago with the midget double A's, they couldn't do the drill. Stationary passing for 2 minutes, the practice went great. They got the feel of the puck. So as a coach, you watch the practice, you watch the drill, you stop the drill, you regress to stationary passing, you went back to it. And that's sort of what I think the art of coaching is in terms of what you decided to do. So, well, everybody, I want to thank you. It was an unbelievable session, John. You're an amazing guy. I'm so glad my granddaughter is playing with Vanessa at the U of M. She's an amazing lady. And Rick, great. I see your hands up. So go ahead, Rick.
That was just an inherent mouse key. Didn't intend to put it up.
Oh, darn it.
Sorry,
I
Wally.
figured
Sorry,
out
everyone.
to take it out.
I thought you'd be able to tie the ribbon on the present for tonight, but I don't know what to say. It's just I'm blown away. John, one of the things that I struggle with is the line between theory and research and being practical and getting results.
Wally, I mean, we've been talking about this forever, and I say to Dean, and doing his PhD now, and I think that's where you use the word vacuum, or I think it's a distance between what we preach, what we talk, and what exactly we walk, and that I think that's a gap that we need to fill, because I've been doing this for I started playing with these games, these theories of game empirically 35 years ago. So I've been basically doing it over and over again, refining them. And remember, it's not only about game, it's about the individual. I mean, we just scratch it, the surface of all this domain of using games to teach game sense or game intelligence of IQ, creativity. We just barely touch it, I think. And it's a depth into it that we need to be aware of it. And when we talk about purpose, intentionality, we need to understand that. And then the design itself, when we start designing this game, and Tom, I was going through that, I think, he can agree with that, is it's not easy to just design a game with a purpose. Like you say, you can throw a bunch of kids on the ice and play. hey, they're playing a game, great. No, you need to have a deep purpose into it, understand that relationship and how you're going to achieve that. So I think this is, you have opened the Pandora box, I think, Wally, and then we need to keep diving into it. And yeah, no, it's great.